Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Calling Within. This is officially our episode 1. And today we have an amazing friend of mine on, my dear Dr. Hannah. Welcome.
Thank you, Veronica. I'm really excited to be here, and I hope you have a great journey with this podcast.
I hope so too. Thank you so much for saying yes and agreeing to it. I am genuinely very honored because I know the world will benefit from your wisdom a lot. So,
Oh, thank you.
very, very excited for this one. All right. I suggest we begin then. Could you please introduce yourself? So, who you are and what it is you do?
Okay. So who am I? Should I answer that from a spiritual perspective or?
Okay, we can jump into this later on a human level, please, for now.
Okay. um, so yeah, I'm Hannah. I am from India. Grew up in Dubai, moved back to India for medical school, and then moved to London last year. What else? I grew up in a not so typical household. I had my fair share of childhood trauma, and a lot of it was suppressed because Indian families, they don't talk about a lot of things and they pretend like everything's okay, but it's not. So that was kind of my background, but obviously it's been a long time since then. And now here I am in London. And yeah, it's been a wonderful journey.
Amazing. And could you tell us a little bit more about your kind of professional and career interests?
Okay. So I'm a doctor by profession. If you're born into a brown household, you have few options. Doctor, engineer, lawyer, maybe, but that's about it. So if you're good at studies and you like biology, then you have only one option. So that's what I went with. Um, but actually, growing up, I wanted to be an astronaut for the longest time.
Love it.
Yeah. Always fascinated with the workings of the universe and science and yeah. But I guess being an astronaut is not so easy.
I mean, neither is being a doctor, so.
True, but it's actually easier to become a doctor than an astronaut.
And what kind of doctor are you?
So at the moment, I'm just a junior doctor. I just finished my medical school and I did my F1. So that's just the first year of practice after medicine. And now I'm just going to start doing my F2, which is kind of the second year of practice. So very junior. And then I'm hoping to specialize in functional medicine later on. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm very keen to chat to you about functional medicine. I know that's your passion.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sure it will be very beneficial to the listeners.
Yeah.
So you're going to be working for the NHS very soon, is that right?
Yeah.
Are you excited for that?
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I wanted a break from medicine. That's why I took the year off and I did my yoga teacher training. And it's been a wonderful year, but it's nice to get back into a routine, I think.
Totally. Oh, I'm so happy that you touched on the yoga teacher training. So you are also a yoga teacher. You've done your training in India. Could you expand on why you decided to do yoga teacher training?
Okay. I think anyone who starts practicing yoga in some form or the other, it could be through meditation, through asana, most commonly through asanas. After a while of practicing, they have this urge to do a teacher training. I feel like that's just the natural pathway.
I can confirm, yes.
Yeah. So that was it for me. I mean, I obviously wanted to deep dive into my yoga practice and I wanted to learn from the source and know more about the philosophy, the yogic meditations. Um, I wasn't aware of how big a world it is because I think I had a very Western approach to yoga, even though I'm from India. And it's kind of sad because um, people in India as well, they're actually, a lot of them are detached from the philosophies and principles of yoga. Um, they just think that it's about, asanas, which is just one small aspect of it. So, yeah, that's why I decided to do yoga teacher training because even though I had started my yoga journey with asanas, it's still has been life-changing and one of the best things that has happened to me.
Mm.
And it's opened up a whole new world, really.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I can totally relate with opening up a total new world. I used to think yoga was bullshit. Genuinely, like when I would observe my mom doing yoga, I would like, this is such bullshit. Like, what is that? Like, this is no point. You're not gonna grow big muscles from it. This is not even proper stretching. What's the point of breathing? And then, life spun me into actually enjoying yoga. And yeah, it completely rocked my world and changed it for the better.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you for kind of giving us this brief intro. I'd like to start with your health journey and kind of your career of being a doctor first, if you don't mind, and then we can jump more into yoga and the spiritual aspects.
Yeah. And also, I think I forgot to answer the question as to why I decided to
Oh,
do it
yes.
in India.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
um, I mean, two simple reasons. One is it's quite cheap.
That's a great reason. Yeah.
And I'm from India, so I thought, and yoga is essentially, it arose in the Indian subcontinent. So I think it was fair for me to like try to get back to the roots.
Yeah.
And we'll discuss more about that later.
Amazing. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So let's jump onto your kind of health journey,
Yeah.
your career as a doctor.
Okay.
So I know you have had some kind of health challenges in the past. Could you kind of describe what was your own journey to health like?
Okay. That's a loaded question. There's just so much to talk about here. And I feel like, everyone has their health struggles and their health journeys. And I think the way that we live now, the modern lifestyle and how disconnected we are, it's not conducive for health in any way. And even with the current capitalist system where we reduce our self-worth to our job or the amount of money we make rather than our connection to others and our connection to nature and ourselves, we 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 lose health. And health, in my opinion, and according to the WHO as well, is not just lack of any symptoms or lack of any diagnoses. It's so much more than that. It's emotional, social, and even spiritual well-being. Um, so this is something I had learned in medical school, the definition of health. Um, Unfortunately, when it came to practice, we didn't really implement it. It just became suppressing symptoms. As for my journey, so I grew up in Dubai, and well, I ate a lot of junk food growing up. Um, I don't like to label foods as good and bad and things like that, but there are some things that obviously are addictive and messes up our biology. And then, yeah, so it's just an addiction essentially. And once you get into it, it's hard to get out, right? I think that definitely messed up my health. Um, and another thing was growing up with, a lot of these American TV shows, dramas, and like um, a lot of body centered um, social media, celebrities, just focusing so much on how you look as a woman, especially, you would know. So, growing up, I was very obsessed with needing to look a certain way. And this is so common in women. Like, I bet if we look up the statistics, most women feel some sort of insecurity about their looks at some point.
And I think it starts very young. I remember reading or listening about it. It was like something like girls from the age of 11 or 10.
Yeah.
They start thinking, they're not beautiful, they're fat.
Yeah.
They need to constantly work out,
Yeah.
diet. And I've experienced this as well when I was a teenager, very young age. Like everybody was obsessed about their bodies. It's very, very sad. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's also interesting to note that these body image standards, they keep changing from time to time. So when we were younger, it was like being really skinny. But then in between, it was like being, I don't know, thick or whatever, with like the Kardashians. And then it just keeps changing. Like women, we're never going to be good enough. We're never going to be happy with who we are.
Mm.
We're never going to appreciate that because it's not profitable for us to be content, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, I did develop, um, and this is something I have started talking more openly about my body image issues. I think a lot of my close friends still don't know how bad it is because it is, it's not something pleasant to talk about. But um, I had severe body dysmorphia, and it became worse when I started to exercise and go to the gym because um, a lot of the people I was following, they were just posting exercises to make their bum bigger.
Yeah. Still to this day, I think a lot of Instagram people are like this.
Yeah. I think Instagram was definitely one of the reasons that my body dysmorphia got really bad.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I obviously started going to the gym to like do something for my health, but actually it ended up being the opposite. It ended up being more destructive. And I took, I think 2 years, I stopped going to the gym. I was like, okay, this is not, I finally like admitted to myself that this is not actually healthy for me.
Mm.
And that's when I started doing more at home workouts.
Mm-hmm.
And um yeah, I really started enjoying it. And during COVID, my sister made me do like some 10-minute yoga video online. Literally so random. And after that 10 minutes, I was like, oh my God, what is that? Like, I was like, I feel so good, you know? Um, she was like, this is yoga. And I think that's where my journey started. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's so incredible because I didn't actually know this, but that's very similar to how my journey started with yoga as well. It
really.
was exactly also period during COVID. I think it was like March 2020, just during the first lockdown. And I remember I was in my flat in London. My flatmate moved out. I was feeling very alone, very scared. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have like this cheat code. I know like exercise is good for mental health, and apparently yoga is good. So I'm gonna try it out. So I did like a 10-minute yoga stretching video, and I was like, this is kind of bullshit, but I'm gonna trick my brain like I've done something, like gratify myself. And then I started doing it every day just for a challenge. And then it was so hard. I was like, I didn't know yoga was meant to be so hard, but I felt so good.
Yeah,
And yeah, I carried on doing it. So it's crazy how during COVID, both of us discovered this amazing practice for ourselves.
definitely.
Mm.
And I think over time, our practice changes as well as it
Mm.
should be.
Yeah.
Um, so initially, I started kind of incorporating yoga more into my daily life, and it was just 15-20 minute asana videos. That's it.
Mm. For those that don't know what asana is, what is it?
Asana is basically the physical aspect of yoga, the physical postures.
Yeah.
So when normally people say yoga, they generally talk about asana, but
Mm.
I like to separate the two because I don't like to reduce yoga as a concept to just the physical practice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So where was I?
So your sister showed you a 10-minute yoga video. Before we jump into that, can I just clarify with you, how old were you when you started having body dysmorphia issues?
Um, this is actually quite sad, but I think it became so maybe it started around
Mm.
15, and it just got worse progressively until my 20s. Yeah. And actually, I would say until I discovered yoga, I still had severe body dysmorphia. And I was so sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was really weighing me down.
Mm.
And once I started incorporating a yoga practice into my life, like a daily physical practice,
Mm.
um, after a few months and like after 1 year, I feel like it just healed completely.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's not something I was actively thinking about while doing my practice, like, oh,
Mm.
I'm doing this to cure my body dysmorphia, whatever.
Mm.
But it just happened. And, there's obviously a lot of explanations to it, but one I can think of is that um, we're not our body. We don't need to be so attached to our physical body, um, or our mind for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Um, our physical body is just one aspect of who we are. And I think once we realize that, we stop seeing ourselves as just our physical appearance.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my body dysmorphia. And along with that, I did have, a bit of eating issues. I did have a binge restrict kind of eating pattern. And I think even my family doesn't know how bad it was. But I was constantly trying to lose weight, and then when I lost weight I was unhappy, so I tried to gain it back, and I just had these cycles where I was constantly gaining and losing, restricting and binging, and like just not healthy. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't in touch with my body, in tune with my body. um but yeah, with yoga and then because of this I started developing a lot of physical issues as well. I had IBS, really bad bloating and constipation and all of the associated symptoms, Had severe anxiety. I think being in medical school is like definitely going to give you
Mm,
anxiety.
of course, yeah. It's a very high stress to study at university plus especially a medical degree where it's very hard, it's longer than other degrees, and I feel like there's a lot of pressure to perform as a doctor
Yeah.
because grades really do matter, right? Like if you don't
Yeah.
perform to grades, then you might not get a job after.
Exactly. It's very academically focused,
Mm-hmm.
and the environment tends to be hyper competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And in India, I did feel like um, it was so competitive that it was toxic.
Mm-hmm.
People were trying to put each other down,
Mm-hmm.
And I myself included, I used to engage in these toxic behaviors. Like, I firstly used to set such high standards for myself. Like, if I had finished studying something once, I was like, my standard is I have to revise all the important points 2 more times, otherwise I haven't studied. And I would I would tell that to my friends as well. Oh, I haven't studied. But the reality is I have studied. I just haven't studied up to my high, unrealistic standard.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the case for so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And and often people used to judge each other on their marks. And also this really silly thing, like it's quite common in I think Asian households where people think that if someone is good at studies and they get good marks, then they're smart.
Yeah, it's more sometimes about hard work and
Mm.
how much you literally learn everything by heart as opposed to smart. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't think the exam system or anything for that matter is a measure of smartness per se, because I mean, knowing how to write exams, that itself is a skill. And then on top of that, it's just a matter of whether or not you want to put in that hard work to like prepare for the exam. So it's so silly that we have these reductionist ways of defining people as certain things. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's, I guess, to keep people bother and worry about things so that they don't care about greater things.
mm-hmm.
That's a whole other discussion about the Matrix. I'd love to talk about this at some point. I don't know
Yeah.
whether we'll touch upon it now or later or maybe in future episodes, but yeah, I mean, it benefits the society to keep people in kind of this prison
Yeah.
that is, imposed. Those societal values will make people obsessed with, grades, marks. And I was there. I am a recovering workaholic. I was obsessed with my job. I was obsessed with studying, working, no
Yeah.
weekends, nothing,
Yeah.
to the point where my body just gave up on,
Yeah.
on all fronts. And after that happened, I then realized I don't need to do this to myself. Like, who am I doing this for? What is the end goal here?
Exactly.
Um, yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. I think um, so. There's this doctor called Dr. Gabor Mate. I don't know if you know him.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about something I really like about him is he says that um, illness and addiction, especially because he's an addiction doctor, he says it comes from a lack of connection. And I think addiction in any form whether it's addiction to certain behaviors, certain foods, social media, I don't know, gaming, workaholism, being obsessed with one identity. I think that comes from a lack of connection, a lack of connection with who we truly are,
Mm.
maybe a lack of community, maybe a lack of connection with each other and nature. So many elements in that. Um, yeah.
I yeah, I totally agree. There is this one book that I read not on addiction but on depression,
Uh-huh.
and the author I can't quite pronounce his name right probably. His name is Jonathan Hyde or something like this, and the book is called Lost Connections, and he
Yeah.
basically talks how the root of depression is in those connections that will also he lists things like losing connection to purpose, to who you are, losing connection to nature as well. He has that community,
100%.
all those things are so important. So I think now the conversation I think is moving towards this, but we just forget, like as you were saying, health is encompassing of all those things,
100%.
not just physical symptoms. Yeah.
Yeah, and if I carry forward with my health journey, um, I would say I was always health conscious, but it was not a healthy way, if that makes sense.
Mm.
And I think that is so common nowadays with social media,
Mm.
why we have so many health influencers who, people who go to the gym, they like are obsessed with counting every calorie. It's like, how stressful is that for your body?
Mm.
To count every calorie that you eat and log that onto some app, like, then you become so obsessed with what you're eating,
Mm.
you lose the joy of what you're eating. You lose
Mm.
even the value of the food that you're eating. You're just reducing food to just calories.
Mm.
I mean, the funny part about that is I'm not saying calories don't matter at all, but you do not need to count calories to be healthy or to lose weight, even.
Mm.
There are many other ways to do that. So, yeah, it's just this reductionist approach, I think, that leads us to become obsessed with things.
Mm.
That makes sense.
You're totally right. And since I've met you, like my health, I think has been influenced a lot by you in a positive direction.
Thank you.
Now when I look at things, I'm like, Hannah said there's vegetable oil there, and I don't look at it anymore, and I don't eat it. So yeah, you have had already massive influence on my health, and
Thank you.
I'd love to chat to you more about how you can become healthy. Is there like kind of universal advice to recommend to everybody how to become healthy on all levels? Like imagine it's just a regular person. They don't really know. They don't listen to podcasts. They don't read books. They just follow the standard Western approach,
Mm.
eat grains, do like walks a couple of times a day max. Like there's not really much emphasis on things like mental health,
Mm.
emotional health,
Yep.
social circle, etc.
Okay. This is a really good question, and I think there's a lot to talk about here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll try to reduce it to okay. So you know how a lot of doctors and scientists are obsessed with like parts of the world where people live long, like Japan and Greece, and I think some parts of like there's some group in California. There's like Italy as well, Sardinia.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like these groups of centenarians and really healthy people who are living really long. Um, for yeah, so people have been studying those cultures and those communities, and even research has shown that the number one thing that is conducive to excellent health in humans is actually community. It's not eating as healthy as possible all the time or being obsessed with what you eat. I actually think that we need to simplify the way we eat. If you go into the supermarket is so complicated. There's so many things in packets with 50 ingredients. Half of them you don't know what they are, you don't know how they're made.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're just labeled as food, and we're just going in and eating them. If you looked at how humans lived, even how my grandmother lived, for example, think about our grandparents.
Mm.
They lived in connection with nature.
Mm.
They'd go to their local, um, their local vegetable guy, their grocer, their meat and fish guy, and then like maybe they'll have a cow, maybe they'll have some chickens.
Mm.
They know exactly where their food is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And their food is all natural, whole food.
One ingredient food.
One ingredient
Yeah.
foods. It's that simple. Don't even bother to go into the aisles where there's things you need to worry about, because that just causes more stress, I think. I would rather you go to the fruit and veg section or the eggs and the meat section and just buy one ingredient food, and that's it. And then you prepare your meals. Don't buy ready-made stuff. Where's your food coming from? I think from a spiritual perspective, I think it's also important to think about where your food is coming from. How long has it traveled? And I think that's all we need to do. Eat locally, eat seasonally, eat naturally occurring foods. And the best example I can give is, like, for example, margarine versus butter. Okay. So, butter, do you know how it's made?
From cream.
Yeah. It's one ingredient. Cream, you churn the cream. And cream is something that's naturally occurring, comes from the cow. Whereas margarine, do you know how it's made?
First, you need to get vegetable oil through a very, very complex process. I love my Twitter threads, and I follow quite a few doctors. I'm sharing some stuff with you, and a doctor there, I can't remember who it was, but he was saying it should be called machine oil.
Yes.
Because the way how they extract the oil from the seeds, it's not even vegetables, it's seeds.
Yeah.
So it's like seed oils.
Yeah.
Then they have to blanch it because it's like this horrible, disgusting color, and it's basically inedible.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, vegetable is just a marketing term for it. But I guess my point is, if you know how the food is made, eat it. If it's made in a simple process, eat it. If it's been eaten by humans for thousands of years, eat it. Like things like butter and cheese and meat and fish and veggies and fruits, they've been eaten by humans for thousands of years. And we have evolved to eat that. Even pulses and grains, if they're prepared properly, they are healthy. We have been eating them for thousands of years. But things that you get in the supermarket these days, things that come in packets and they're just filled with chemicals, they're not human food. It's just stuff that's gonna damage your body.
It's just dead stuff. Like,
exactly.
I started looking at it, it's like it's dead. Like, it's not gonna give you anything to your body besides harm.
Exactly. And I'm not saying don't eat crisps or chocolate or whatever, but I think there are healthier versions of these things available. So try to be wary of that. And if you do slip up, if you do like eat something once in a while, you're hungry, it happens. You don't need to make a big deal of it. Just move on. Your body will be able to handle it I think 80% of the time, if you're able to eat healthy, 20% of the time, eat whatever else. Like, you need to have a balance. Again, if you really like cookies, I like cookies. If you restrict yourself too much from something you really like, I don't think that's healthy, for example. I guess for anything, you can just make it with better ingredients, and getting involved in cooking and the process of it itself is a meditative activity. And I think that's something that's also missing. Because a few generations ago, we used to prepare everything fresh from scratch. And now it's like there's so many people involved in the chain of processing the food. We don't know what the source is anymore. We're disconnected from the source. So I think if we try to connect more with the source of the food, that itself will be a great way to achieve health.
So in summary, try and eat one ingredient foods.
Yeah. Simple.
If it's more than one ingredient, make sure you know where those ingredients came from, how it was made.
Yeah.
But don't overly obsess about it.
Yeah.
Just make sure most of the time to eat healthy.
Yeah. And also, don't follow the NHS guidelines.
Yep. This is a very controversial statement, but I'm very happy, to spread it to the world.
You might need to cut that out. Let me rephrase it.
Yes.
I would say, so like there's this obsession with low fat. You know how I feel about that. Don't eat a low fat diet. It's not beneficial in any way, and it does more harm than good, because we need fats in our diet. Fats have literally, like our brain is mostly made of fat, for example. So when we don't get enough fat, our nervous system doesn't work properly, our gut isn't lubricated, and our whole immune system gets messed up. So essentially, we're just depriving our body of essential nutrients when we eat low fat foods. So just eat naturally occurring fats like butter, olive oil, avocado oil, coconut. There's lots of options, nuts and seeds, plenty of healthy fats available. So just go for those, and it'll make you more satiated as well, and you'll enjoy your food because it tastes delicious.
Absolutely. I notice such a difference every time I have a fat-free yogurt. Not often, but because full fat is not available, I'm hungry so much quicker.
Yeah.
And I become hangry even if I don't eat fat. If it's just either carbs or lean protein,
Yeah.
yeah, I need fat to keep me full. I'm a hangry girl most of the time. So
Yeah. Hunger is not really, hunger means that you're not satisfied,
totally, yeah.
It's just a sign of your blood sugar going down, being hungry. So it's important to be aware and listen to your body.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I'd like to touch on with you like why you're recommending avoiding those processed foods.
Okay.
Because so for me, I have done some research into it. Plus, you told me a lot of things about it. But for an average person that doesn't even think about it, eats stuff out of packages because it's easy, it's cheap, it's readily available. Why should they think twice before putting this in their body?
Okay. So now if we go back to how we've evolved as humans, we've evolved eating fresh, naturally occurring foods. And those foods have always nourished us and always provided our body with signals. Okay. For example, if we eat certain phytonutrients that occur in plants, you must have heard, they have antioxidant property, they have the vitamins, they have the minerals, all these are nourishing. Um, and same for all naturally occurring foods, whether it's meat or egg or fish or whatever, they have essential fatty acids. They have essential amino acids for building muscle and for general body function. They have essential fats for general body function, for the skin, for the gut, for the brain, for the nervous system. Now, if you think about processed foods, what we're doing is essentially stripping naturally occurring foods of those beneficial nutrients. And when that happens, instead of providing nourishment to our body is not able to recognize it, and it causes inflammation. And inflammation is like a buzzword. All influencers talk about it, and I think it's also very misunderstood. There's actually, inflammation is not always a bad thing to start with. In year 2 of medical school, we had this one chapter on inflammation, explaining like the biochemistry, the biology, and the cells that are involved in the process, and blah blah blah. And essentially, every chronic illness is characterized by chronic inflammation. So now, if you are constantly experiencing inflammation in your body, constantly, more than you're supposed to, and this is not just from food, this can be from various other reasons, like stress is another huge factor. Lack of sleep is another one. Loneliness. Loneliness is one of the biggest killers, worse than smoking cigarettes and all of that. Like environmental pollutants, chemicals, there's a lot of factors, but all of these factors combined constantly contributing to inflammation. Over years, that becomes a diagnosis, that becomes an illness. So if you eat a bag of crisps once and most of the other times you're healthy, your body will be fine. But if that's what you're eating every day, then you're just creating creating a nice environment for illness, for inflammation to thrive. So, yeah, I hope that doesn't make it too complicated.
No, no, I think that explains it very well. And I guess, how does a person know that they have inflammation? So you mentioned illnesses,
Mm.
but what if it hasn't manifested yet and they think, oh, I'm young. Yes, I eat unhealthily most of the time, but I go to the gym, I have friends, I sleep, 6 hours a day, it's still decent. But how do I know I have problems, or how do I know it will manifest for sure?
I can tell you a few common symptoms.
Mhm.
Um, so some of them might be stomach issues commonly. So that can include things like acid reflux. Um, it can include just indigestion, food intolerances and allergies, then constipation, bloating, tummy pain, that sort of stuff. Then another common symptom is also anxiety.
Mhm.
If you have a lot of inflammation in your body, it also messes up, the amount of dopamine and serotonin in your body. So anxiety is another one.
Mhm.
Headaches, common headaches. Yeah, I would say these three commonly.
Mhm. And of course, if you go to the doctor in the Western world with those problems, they will give you some medicine, some
Yeah,
pharmaceutical solutions, but it's unlikely doctors are gonna ask you what you eat, how much do you sleep,
yeah.
things like that.
Sadly, that is the case, and I hope that it will change.
Mhm.
Um, but for now, the system is basically just trying to treat symptoms.
Totally, yeah.
So if you're coming with a headache, if I get a patient with the headache, first thing I think is no, I don't diagnose him or her with the painkiller deficiency. Do I?
Yes. Wow, I never heard anybody say that. Yeah, that's so true. Hmm.
So think about it. If you get a headache, you're not having a paracetamol deficiency. That's not why you're getting a headache, are you?
Yes.
A common symptom, it's the simplest way to say it. You need to go further. Why are you getting a
Mm.
headache?
Mm.
What's the person's lifestyle like?
Mm.
And that's why I love Ayurveda, because in Ayurveda, there's this concept called dinacharya, which is like daily routine.
Mhm.
An Ayurvedic doctor, when they take history from a patient, they actually ask the patient their daily routine. What's your morning like? How much do you sleep? And what do you eat for breakfast, dinner, lunch? Do you exercise? Do you walk? Do you get sunlight? They ask all of these questions.
Mhm.
That gives them a really good idea of what the patient's day to day life is.
Mhm.
And from that, we can actually deduce a lot of information, a lot of things about what's going wrong. And that's something that's missing in Western medicine.
Mm. Yeah, I would love to touch on Ayurveda as well later.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I guess the number one thing you need to do to be healthy is to stop eating processed foods, focus on whole foods,
Yeah.
and yeah, if you are experiencing inflammation symptoms, again, rethink your lifestyle in terms of dietary choices.
In terms of diet, yes. But remember, the diet is just one aspect.
Totally, yeah.
Another thing is also like spending time in nature. Firstly, we are nature. I mean, we'll delve more into that when we discuss about spirituality.
Hmm.
But when we have a nature deficiency, we get deficiency of everything else, you know? If we spend at least 20 minutes a day in a garden or looking at water, it'll calm us down. It'll bring us to a relaxed parasympathetic state. And that's the kind of relaxed and blissful state that we're supposed to be in
Mm.
most of the time.
Mm.
You know how, like, if we spend like a whole day outside in nature, you feel so good. All the good hormones running through your body, you're relaxed, you just feel great, and you're moving, you're breathing in the fresh air, listening to the birds. Imagine that's how we as humans have been living for most of our existence until recently. So it's such a sudden shift in our lifestyle,
Yeah,
and our body is not capable of handling it.
yeah. It's so crazy how we've been living our modern lifestyle for just a fraction
Yeah.
of however many years humans have existed on Earth. And I can totally relate to that because sometimes whenever I work from home, just in my room, I just stare at my computer screen for the whole day. I'm sometimes too busy, well, too busy in quotation marks, to go out for a walk.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, after an 8 hour shift, I feel so anxious for almost, well, I think it's no reason. I'm like, why am I anxious? I
Yeah.
didn't do anything strenuous. Like,
Yeah.
I am supposed to be fine. I was just, sat in one place, staring at the computer. Just my brain was thinking, but my body wasn't working hard. And yet my body is so agitated and I feel
Yeah.
so bad. But if I move, funnily enough, especially if I go to nature and I walk barefoot on the ground, do grounding practice, Jesus Christ, my body is just so much like it's so filled with energy. And every time I think about health and how we've evolved as a species, I always think, oh, is it evolutionary appropriate? Because
That's a great way to think about things, I think.
evolution is super smart, right?
Yeah.
It made us survive.
Exactly.
So surely whatever helped us survive will help us survive further.
100%.
Yeah.
And we need to live in an evolutionary appropriate way. We need to live in a similar environment to how we have evolved, because anything else is alien to our genes and alien to our body, which is why it reacts with inflammation.
So why is it that the body needs inflammation?
Yeah, inflammation. So, as I mentioned about chronic inflammation earlier, that leads to diseases. But acute inflammation, like if I have a cut on my hand, I need those cells to go there, cause inflammation, to seal the cut, to cause the blood clot. And our body has evolved over thousands of years to deal with stresses. For example, the fight flight response is an excellent example. It's something that we need to deal with danger. I don't know, if there's a robbery, if there's someone chasing us, if there was a tiger chasing us in the woods. That's when we need it. But nowadays, we are on fight flight mode all the time. That is dangerous. That literally, there's a concept called adrenal fatigue. It hasn't yet caught up in the Western medicine world, but essentially, when you're producing so much cortisol, it depletes your adrenal glands of the other hormones that it's supposed to produce, because everything is just getting shunted towards cortisol production. So it literally causes bodily dysfunction. So that's something I need to read more about. But essentially, the way that we live now, we're chronically inflamed, chronically stressed. And I'm talking about physiological stress, like scrolling on social media is physiologically stressing. Being exposed to too much artificial light is physiologically stressing. So essentially, we need to be as close to nature as possible.
That's totally true. And I feel like also society rewards us being physiologically stressed because before even I knew about the importance of sleep and rest, I thought it was cool to just, not sleep, brag about, oh, I've done so much studying. Even though I was drinking, I was clubbing, I still managed to do the studying. I'm not resting. I'm a superhuman. Yay. I'm going to be working, 60-hour weeks for the whole year. And look how cool I am, right? And society's like, yay, well done, you. That's what you're supposed to do. This is a sign of achievement and a good thing. And I feel like this is unfortunately not the best way in how society developed because it makes us inherently unhealthy, as you're saying.
Agreed. And also, we need to remember we don't need to validate our existence with achievements.
Totally true. Yeah.
So I think we can close the health topic for now.
Mm.
Although I think health and spirituality are quite intertwined.
Absolutely. Okay, so just to recap, if you feel like you want to be healthy, please focus on diet and lifestyle. That's the biggest thing. And obviously ensure you have a nice community of people around you.
100%. Yeah. And connect with nature.
Absolutely. Cool. Amazing. I am 100% sure your influence will go beyond the limits. And yeah, I'm very looking forward to people becoming more healthier with this advice.
Yeah, I hope so. Because I think if people are less stressed and more healthy, we would have a more peaceful world as well.
Oh, absolutely.